Now listen, before we go any further into this and see how everybody is scrambling to try and save or expose him, before we go any further, make sure to leave a like. Seriously, leave a like and help us out because, well, with what we are going to expose and with what we are about to show, it's only going to get a lot worse than everything we have already seen from Drake's Ultra Karen meltdown, and so just get ready and say it with me. Now when it comes to Drake! Man, this is about to be a good one. And if you are ready to see how after a video of Drake freaking out after starting a scuffle in the club has went absolutely viral, and we have really seen how much of a loser, crybaby, victim wannabe he really is. Well, if you are ready to see how we have found out what the real scuffle that Drake got into ended up being about, who it was with, who took his section which caused him to do the Karen finger point, and well, everything else about this situation which has resulted in Drake getting his people to work to try and clean it all up, and to avoid whatever the truth is from being really exposed, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. And listen, I'm just going to tell you guys and be very honest. I don't like the way this situation is going. And not in terms of Drake just having a Karen meltdown and doing the finger point and all the other cringe stuff we have seen, because that's, well, the funny stuff and the stuff that everybody needs to know. But specifically what I am talking about is with the PR attempt from Drake's people to try and just clean up this story, make it sound like nothing, and brush it off with what they are labeling and calling it right now, which to anybody they can get in contact with is just a prank. You know, Drake doing this and freaking out the way he was, it was just a prank. Well, I'm here to tell you that it was not a prank, and I'm going to be exposing every single thing that we have seen about this situation. I just gotta ask you guys one more time before we go any further, really make sure to leave a like because they don't want anybody to know what's going on here, but we just gotta let everybody know. Well, listen, now ultimately there has been a lot of conversation around every single thing that has went down with Drake. And now the first thing that's been happening is, well, just the conversation of leading up to Drake getting kicked out of the club over him seemingly losing his section, crashing out on the bouncer and trying to take everybody on and doing the whole hold me back gimmick. Although, of course, we knew Drake was actually going to do nothing. Well, when it comes to who they are saying that Drake ended up getting into a little bit of a squabble with and who he ended up crashing out on, well, as far as we know, there are a few very important things here, which is that first off, this ended up happening in December of 2023. So again, while we were talking about how the timeline was kind of messy about these events, we now know it went down then. And so now while there are a lot of people throwing in their names and saying that they messed with Drake, and this guy is one of the people that everybody around social media is saying is the one who caused the scuffle with Drake, which just like, if this is the guy Drake crashed out over, this whole thing gets even funnier. Beyond all the speculation and beyond all of the noise, where we know that things are getting weird and where honestly we can start to see that everything becomes a bigger issue than ever, is from the plea that everybody in OVO is trying to cop. And now how they did this, well, and here is where we gotta get into all of the information, was by having the owner of this club, which this is called the Shisha Lounge in Turks and Caicos, well, seemingly they made the owner call and explain to none other than Angela Yee and B-Dot on their show, well, everything that he knew about the altercation that went down in 2023 in Turks and Caicos. And just with this, listen, I think this is what's very important about media literacy and just conversation patterns in general, but you know what's so clear when you hear this? It's that, and to quote Kendrick Lamar, it smells like somebody's lying, because just with the way that they try to justify seeing Drake have this full-on freak out and really try to play it off like it's a joke, which is what this guy says over and over again, and I will play a little clip, but he goes on to say that it was just a prank. Well, overall, things just don't add up. And you know, while there was a way to maybe explain this, play it down, and make it sound like it was nothing, that's definitely not what we saw here. As now, I'm just gonna give you some quotes and play some small clips of what he ended up saying, which get ready to hear some of the worst things that you ever will.
I think it was a prank,
Okay.
you know. because this is one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet in your life once you get to know him. But he does have a funny side.
And so just with that and with every single thing that was said in about the 2 minutes and 30 seconds that they spoke to Angela Yee and B. Well, there's one line that really stuck out to me, and it seemed like some sort of a slip or just an admission that we are really being fed a lie here, and that is this. It was a prank. Drake is one of the nicest guys once you get to know him, but he does have a funny side. And just with the verbiage of this, just with how clunky it sounds, and just by explaining Drake acting like this, by calling it a prank, and then saying that he's one of the nicest guys when you get to know him, but then saying that he has a funny side, but by funny side and with the way it's actually delivered, there's a very negative connotation to it, which makes it sound like he has some sort of a darker side. Well, listen, overall with this and with this guy just saying there's nothing to it, and with him trying to say that this was Drake's first time there and his first time in Turks and Caicos, and even then saying that he is the ambassador of the place as well, which just seemed like some Hall of Fame level coping and caping. Meanwhile, though, again, this was in December of 2023, and if we go back to Lil Yachty and his specific storytelling, well, if you remember his podcast that he had with his buddy Mitch, on the episode where he had J. Cole being interviewed, he ended up revealing to us that he was working on Her Loss in Turks and Caicos with Drake right then, which if you remember the Her Loss album, it didn't come out in 2023, but it came out in 2022, and you can quote me on that, and you can go back to that podcast that Lil Yachty scrapped after he crashed out and see him saying those very words. But yeah, just with all of that, something is not making sense. It's from this guy lying about Drake visiting Turks for the first time and making a whole elaborate story there, to then just the way it sounds like he's so clearly coping and caping for him when you just hear him try to over and over again reiterate the point that it was a prank and that Drake is a great guy. Meanwhile, everything we are seeing is showing the opposite. And honestly, everything that we saw in comparison to the story and the plea that he has tried to get, it just does not match up whatsoever. Overall, with this, what I think we can safely assume is that we are being lied to. And what that really does just pose the question of, and once again for Drake, I don't know whoever in OVO tried to stomp on this, but they really must have not thought this through. Because honestly, for anybody who is willing to give half of a thought to this or just about anything, they are going to see the exact same thing, which is that Drake is covering something up, and that this guy who is seemingly the owner of this club is just doing the work to do so. Which now a few other things that were weird within this 2.5 minute plea that he tried to give to Drake was not just him saying that he is the ambassador of Turks and Caicos, but then him saying that Drake had a misunderstanding here within the club, and that's what happened. But then at the same time as saying there was a misunderstanding, he was saying that this video and what Drake was doing was a prank, which, like, listen, we have seen Drake act in so many different ways, both on and off the mic, and from seeing everything we ever have in public, come on, buddy, this isn't our first time around. We know he is not acting here, and we definitely know that this wasn't a prank. As you know, no matter what he was trying to do to act tough and fake, that is still his ego getting the best of him and him trying to intimidate everybody else he felt like messed with him and disrespected him. And you can't deny that, especially when you just see that Karen finger point, which is just an undeniable moment in a fit of anger. And so just putting all of this together, we have this video of Drake having an absolute meltdown and freak out after he is seemingly being kicked out of a club in Turks and Caicos. And now we have the owner of the club, well, getting on the phone and talking to one of the biggest names in hip-hop media ever in Angela Yee, and he is making up this elaborate story where at the very least we hear multiple contradictions within his recount of this, as on one side he's saying that Drake had a misunderstanding, and then on the other he is saying that this all was a prank. Well, overall the story just doesn't make sense. And so where this is going to lead us, and where I don't think the OVO stans thought this was going to go, or maybe they thought that just like their fan base, everybody is just going to believe what they say, so we just would have walked away and said that, yeah, there's nothing here. Well, now we are at the point where if Drake did this action, which again, we could see in the video, just check it out for a second, look at him crash out and just take that all in. And once again, I'll remind you, just look at the whole Karen finger point thing and look at him trying to do the whole hold me back grift. Well, if we see all of that and now see a story and a narrative that is being twisted to us to pretty much try and divert and dilute our perception of the video that we have all seen, I just have to ask this question, and genuinely, guys, try to help me answer this one and try to help me figure it out. But why? Why would they not just tell us the real story if this was small and this was a little interaction and it was a little mistake and that was it? And why would we literally see the owner get on the phone on one of the biggest hip hop broadcasts you could find and try to make up a story where, again, from saying it's a misunderstanding on one side to then saying it was a prank, you hear clear contradictions in the way it's being told. And again, even with the way he describes Drake overall, from saying he's a great guy to then saying he has a funny side, but it really sounds like he has a terrifying side. Just what does that all mean? And it just seems very clear and very obvious that we are being played with right in front of our eyes, and they are really trying to just pull one on all of us. But again, as we are seeing all of this and we can see the truth, we know that this is happening and we know that there is something behind the scenes that is going on that they just don't want us to know. But honestly, I'm genuinely trying to think and figure out why, which listen, now there are a ton of things that we could speculate on, try to go down a rabbit hole with, and just try to pin on Drake and say this is the reason why we saw the Karen meltdown crash out that we did. I think to a degree that's irrelevant because with them just hiding the real story overall, that already speaks volumes. And you know what? I'm going to reference Kendrick Lamar and now the diss track Meet the Grams, and these bars specifically, which reference Drake being in Turks and doing whatever he does there, according to Kendrick Lamar, just to add a little more thoughts to what Drake really may be doing when he's out here and maybe some of the events or actions around at the very least, what may have happened here, which listen, I really don't know what this could have been, and I really don't know what type of misunderstanding could have happened that led to Drake, who is somebody who always tries to act so cool and composed when he is in the limelight, to just lash out and really do this. But I'm starting to think that overall with Drake and the relationships he has with Turks and Caicos as a whole, and with everything he kind of has had going on there, which once again, just think about this line from Meet the Grams and think about it in conjunction to this one video we have seen of Drake just acting raw and unfiltered there. Well, listen, I mean, we have heard pieces here and there from people like Vlad and even academics about some of the stuff that Drake may have going on behind the scenes and some of the weird things that he may be roped into and that he may be taking part of. And I just have to say, at the very least, I'm not saying that this specific video resulted from one of those very weird things or even the direct result of the bar that Kendrick Lamar is saying. But what I do think we are seeing here and what I do think is materializing right before our own eyes, and I'm just going to say don't be fooled by this, is that just with this clip of seeing what I am going to say is the real Aubrey Graham behind the mask of Drake acting out the way he has within this scene that we are all seeing within this public meltdown, well, this entire confrontation and just the way he is acting is a glimpse of the man that he really is when he seems to be on this island most. And I guess that's just because here, and I mean, you even hear the club owner say it like he's almost scared or something to not say it and say that he is the ambassador of Turks and Caicos and that he does so many great things. It just does seem like he's got some sort of control over all the nightlife there now, and that he really is running things within a way where nobody is going to speak out about him and nobody is really going to do anything to try and check him. Because ultimately, when you even just see the entitlement in the way he is acting here, which again, we've seen him get checked and kind of been humbled in other situations, you just never see this level of crash out Karen. I think this all just comes from a man who has gotten way too comfortable somewhere and who thinks he is better than everybody else and who definitely thinks that he is above the rules that everybody has to follow. And well, this is just a moment, I guess, early on within his lineage of being here, where things didn't go the best and where he didn't get his way, which we can just see the results of here. But even just to see Drake be this comfortable to crash out the way he did, that to me is exposing something that honestly, I'm not ready to go down that rabbit hole because I don't know if I am qualified to yet or if we have enough information to really uncover, but something so weird is going on. So listen, what I want you to do and what I want you to think about walking away from this is just to remember everything you have seen and just remember this weird call that is so clearly trying to cover up and cape for Drake however it possibly can be done. Because again, normal interactions just don't go down like this, and people don't talk about somebody in a way that is trying to be framed within a positive light while making slip-ups and contradictions that are clearly implying the other. So just remember when you hear things, especially about somebody who we know has been one of the most media-controlled people that, well, we have seen in quite a long time, just in terms of the way that he has tried to present himself and just in terms of the people that he has consistently aligned himself with to try and keep as favorable of an image as possible. But again, everything is not what it seems, and that a lot of this stuff is just so weird. And really for Drake, and really with this video, he better hope that not much else comes out from this, because if it does, I have a feeling that things are going to get a lot worse, and even for Drake and Turks and Caicos as a whole. If things only get exposed more, and if we can only get further to the truth, well, honestly, as scary as it may sound, that Kendrick Lamar line from Meet the Grams may become more true than ever, and if that's the case, well, we're going to have a lot more issues than Karen finger pointing, as seriously, this guy is going to have more issues than we could have ever possibly fathomed. And so yeah, that's all, but honestly, I can't say all like it's nothing. That's what I got today. And honestly, I just think this whole situation is weird. So really let me know your thoughts on all of it in the comments. Be sure to let me know what you think about Drake covering all of this up and what it means. And again, why he would try to hide such a thing, which I just think is weird. Listen, if you made it to this point of the video, thank you, and be sure to leave a like and subscribe. It helps me out a ton. And listen, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope you really do have a great rest of your week. And if you want to try to enjoy more of that week with me and see how right before this, Drake just did some absolutely funny stuff that ended up putting his fans in a position where they are going to be really mad at him. Well, I just don't know how he's going to explain himself out of this one, because the optics of this just look terrible. And really the grift that he's playing, once again, we are just getting to a point where things are only catching up to him more and more. Well, you're not going to want to miss this one, so check out the suggested video.